Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Craft of the Draft podcast. We've got a Vic Metro squad for the boys to go through, and that's obviously the top of our list today. But as usual, we're going to start with a question. I've got a really odd one for you, and I'm a big NBA person, love my basketball, big Celtics man, and NBA playoffs at the moment. I'm sure a good portion of our listeners are also basketball fans as well. So my question was, who would you draft as your basketball team in the CTL to win you a 7-game playoff series?
Okay.
Now, I don't expect you to have a quick answer to this, but I've given my 5 here, right? And they're not necessarily because they'd be good basketballers. There's just different kind of reasons to it. So
Christian Murray is in there?
Christian Murray is at my one. He's just a natural baller. So he's probably the only pure basketballer in there that I know of, because I don't actually know if these last 4 played basketball.
Either of the Whitlock brothers? They both basketballers? No.
Benny Rondit from the Geelong Falcons.
Yeah, athleticism.
Absolutely incredible athlete. His vertical jump is elite, so have him at the rim. He'll play as your centre. I don't know if he's got the height for it, but he'd still be terrific at it. I'd have Xavier Lindsay for his defensive smarts. And I don't know if
how that translates to basketball.
Neither do I, but look, I love the way he's defensively set up on the field. So I'm sure it translates onto the basketball court. I'd have Josh Murphy as the real aggressor. And
I can see that, yeah.
If anyone watches Pat Beverley, I can imagine they'd be very similar, just real hustlers and love to get under people's skins, and that's the type Josh Murphy would be. And I hope Josh Murphy's not as bad as Pat Beverley. Don't personally like him that much. And the last one is a real weird one. Shouldn't be on a basketball court, but Massimo Razzo.
170 centimetres.
Ground ball. Get him down. If anyone knows, Isaiah Thomas used to play for the Celtics, as tiny as it comes, but could shoot the 3 ball like you couldn't imagine. Could you imagine Massimo Razzo going under people's legs? Low ground ball dribbles, he'd be terrific. So that would be my 5. Pretty weird question, but I just thought it fits the topic of NBA playoffs. Could you give me another player you'd add?
I think one of the Whitlock twins, if not both of them, I would get in there.
That'd be tough.
Yeah,
that'd be tough.
They'd be real hard.
Okay, question, yours.
My question to you is, I saw a very close Coates League game on Sunday between the GWV Rebels and the Bendigo Pioneers. Ollie Poole kicking it behind on the siren to win it. Would you play extra time in a draw in Coates Talent League, which is a different question to AFL? I'll tell you why it's a different question. I don't think draws should go to extra time in AFL. Draws are an important result. You get 2 points each. If you can't get a result after 120 minutes, you can't get a result. In Coates League, I'd love to see 5 minutes of extra time. I'd love to see who stands up in the big moments and who's calm and who's poised. I actually think there's real value to it because results don't matter as much. So a team getting 0 points instead of 2 isn't as big a deal. Everyone makes finals. We know that. And you get to find out a little bit more about players and leaders.
I wouldn't be opposed to it. I guess the only issue, and I'm sure recruiters would have this issue, is that what if someone gets injured in those 5 minutes? You'd be like, well, those were completely avoidable.
Yeah, I actually hadn't considered that. That's a fair point.
I wouldn't be against it. I think it had a bit of fun and nothing wrong with it in terms of conditioning wise. You're going to have to play an extra 15 minutes to what they usually play when they get to senior level anyway. So wouldn't hurt them, but yeah, that was an interesting game that we'll 100% get to come the end of the podcast. But let's move to the Vic Metro squad that was announced during last week, just after last week's podcast. So we just couldn't get onto it last week, but now we have. So we're going to go through player by player, break it down a little bit,
and our thoughts on the squad as well.
Who's
and
missed
some
out,
players who have missed,
and who we will be watching. Even closer as a result of this, really, the ones who have missed out. But I'll let you take the lead. Who do you want to start with?
So I think my immediate reaction in response to the squad, and it's important to acknowledge how difficult it is to pick these sort of squads, no matter who they named, we're always going to say, geez, this person was unlucky to not make it or has just missed out. But I think the big grievance that I perhaps have got with it this year is just that the squad balance to me seems a little bit off what it has been in past years. It's too midfield and forward heavy. There's a lot of midfielders in this draft, and we know that. There's 12 midfielders in the squad, players who I'd consider their primary position to be in the midfield, and 11 who I'd consider their primary position to be forward. And a lot of those forwards can pinch it into the midfield. You think of Tom Gross, you think of Jesse Totoli. You think of a Taj Houghton as well. They can all go into the midfield, and 23 players in those two positions, and then you've only got one winger in Patrick Reshko, who I would consider his primary position to be on the wing. And you could say it's off half-back. You could say it's in the midfield as well. So you go, who are you going to play on the wing? You're going to end up playing a midfielder who's not quite good enough to break into that midfield. Are you better off playing someone who's not quite good enough in the midfield on your wing, or are you better off playing a specialist winger like Lucas McInerney on your wing, and you know how important he's going to be? He's going to hold his width, and he's going to play the role that you want him to play to perfection. Which would you prefer? I thought he was very unlucky to miss the squad, and Jack Ryan as well as a specialist high half forward misses the squad. They're going to end up playing someone like a Josh Dolan, can play that high half forward role really well. He did it in the grand final for Sandy last year and throughout the final series, but others who will be put into that role might not have the experience of someone like Jack Ryan in that role. He's probably the best in the Talent League at it, or certainly one of the best probably in the Vic Metro region. So those were two that I thought were really unlucky, because it looks like there has been a tendency to go for midfielders and go for the best 31 players in this draft class, or best 29 players plus 2 bottom ages, rather than actually looking at players and playing them in their preferred position.
I'll start on... Well, look, we had a bit of an argument before this started on the whole... who gets in terms of positions and everything. And I don't agree that it should just be based on making a team. That I understand you obviously have to field a team that's competitive for a champs, but someone like Lucas McInerney has easily had a better start to his season than you could probably say about 6 or 7 on this Vic Metro list. And I think that is so harsh to not select someone who really has been playing the best football, he's seen of his career so far. He suffers because when, the Metro boys are playing, he's playing in weaker teams when Talent League is still on, right? Like, he suffers quite big from this. And I understand not getting selected for Metro is not the end of the world, right? There's
Still
been heaps of players that can still get drafted, right? But that's pretty big football. He should be able to show what he can do on that stage, and it's just, I think, frustrating that he's missed out. I don't know how you justify that, to be honest. And like you said, I mean, you can put someone like Jaden Ewan back onto the win like he was doing last year.
But then you're depleted down on half-back,
or
you're playing off half-back. Yeah, I guess the couple of things I wanted to bring into this to, I guess, close off on the Lucas McInerney discussion is that last year in the squad, it was a bigger squad. It was a squad of 36, but they had 4 wingers, or 4 players who you'd consider their primary position to be on the wing. This year, they've only got 1, if that. And in 2022, they had 5 players who you'd consider their primary position to be on the wing. I look at Lucas McInerney and I compare him to a Caleb Windsor. I say Lucas McInerney has started his Talent League season better than what Caleb Windsor did last year.
100%. He came on in the end.
Absolutely. Caleb Windsor had an ankle injury, if I remember right, in pre-season of 2023, and that hindered him at the start of the season, but he was able to enhance his draft value off the back of his national champs, goes pick 7. Obviously, we all know where he's at now. Lucas McInerney has been depleted of that opportunity. But, he had another good game for Northern on the weekend, so hopefully he's able to continue to enhance his prospects at the Knights. But, I thought he was quite unlucky. And similar things could be said of Jack Ryan, who, electric, speedy, gets up the ground, works back. There's not many players that understand that role as well as what he does. And if you're a club that's looking for a high half forward and wants to draft a high half forward, you'd be disappointed you're not going to get to see him at the next level, because, yes, you can throw a Christian Moraes in that high half forward role, but realistically, as a club, you probably know he's more likely to play on a wing, maybe as an inside midfielder down the line, but, he's probably not that high half forward at AFL level. Certainly that's not his preferred position at the moment. So that's probably where the discussion sort of lies for me. There were some others I thought were unlucky, but I'll throw to you.
In terms of what players that are unlucky, or just
any other thoughts on the squad?
A lot of Dragons.
Yeah.
That's always the case. But again, I don't know. Maybe I'll just keep going on about this McInerney thing, but I think there's just so many ways you could put him in. Like when you look at club distribution, and Western only have Luca Grego, and I understand that's probably the only, he was probably the only one who really put his hand up. But I don't know. Some boys would be feel pretty hard done by. My question to you, who starts in that midfield? Like, who would you really run through that centre stoppage? And there's a few names to choose from here. It's pretty stacked. And
yeah, it is stacked.
What would you start with?
I'd start with Josh Smiley, Levi Ashcroft and Jagger Smith in that starting midfield. And Cody Anderson would rotate through there heavily. And Cody Anderson is one that I look at and I say he's done everything right. He needed to play the perfect month of footy. He needed to play the best month of footy of his life and probably needs to continue to do so until the champs start. Needs to continue that form if he's going to get into that Metro midfield because we know how stacked it is. But he has done that and he has a slight point of difference in terms of how big he is, how physical he is, how tough he is. So if he can continue to show that, it's going to be hard to not want to see him in there because he is one of those midfielders. Obviously, like we say, there's probably surplus of those who are midfielder preferred position, but he really is one of those that if you're going to play him, you need to play him in the midfield. You
wouldn't have Jagger Smith in the mid. You'd have him at half forward, I'm guessing.
No, I said didn't I say
you said
Josh Smiley, Levi Ashcroft and Jagger Smith. Isn't that what I said?
Maybe you did.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely have Jagger
Smith.
Maybe
Christian Moraes was the other one I'm thinking of.
No, I definitely have Jagger Smith, Levi Ashcroft and Josh Smiley with Cody Anderson rotating in and Nash King would go in as well. Perhaps he plays off half-back, but I'd like to see him go through the midfield.
Someone like Zach Johnson, do you reckon he gets into that start?
Yeah, not the starting.
Is he in that best team, though? Because obviously I don't know who they'll play the best team against. Like we know it was against... It was more against Allies. They had that stronger team. And they typically leave it to country as well. But in that strongest team, do you see Zach Johnson in it?
Yeah, I do. He's probably one that gets pushed onto a wing, I'd say.
Which would be interesting. He'd play a very defensive wingman's role. Like, it would be... You wouldn't see a lot... It would be that kind of relieving pressure kind of wing that doesn't really impact as much offensively. So... Maybe this is a squad that's purely been selected out of what can these mids show versatility-wise. And it is a good opportunity in that sense because a lot of these boys will be out of their comfort zone at the top level.
Yep.
In terms of others, you think?
That run through there?
Yes.
I think I mentioned Nash King. I obviously mentioned Cody Anderson. I think that Murphy Reid would be another one that would run through there as well. They'd be the main ones. Obviously, others that have played midfield at their Talent League clubs. Damon Hollow, probably, we saw him play down back in the Metro Trials, probably does play down back if he's going to get selected in a team. Christian Moraes, I see, is playing more of an outside role or a high forwards role in this team, and Harry Oliver is a tough one to assess. I don't know where I'd play him immediately.
He could be one that plays a bit of a defensive role as well.
Halfback, maybe.
Yeah, he's a good defensive player in terms of his just general mindset.
Accountable.
He knows where to be in the right spots.
I guess the one thing that this squad doesn't have as much of either, we talked about wingers, they don't have those running half-back types. We know in the draft last year, and I'm probably more so talking Vic Country players come to mind like Lamont Lawal, Oscar Ryan, Kobe James. We obviously had Nathan Phylactides in Metro. He had so many of those running half-back types last year. There's not as many in the draft this year, just inherently that's the makeup of some of the players at the top end. So it means you are going to have to play some midfielders off half-back, so some good ball users perhaps. One who I thought was unlucky as a result of the dearth of halfbacks, and probably one halfback that is in there is Jaden Ewan. I'd say he plays off halfback, tries to set them up, would like to see him use the ball well. But Tom Wenzel would have been an asset to this team because his kicking efficiency as his one would could have been really creative. Off there, having said that, maybe the writing was on the wall a little bit in the fact that he played wing and half forward in the trial matches, so it would have been hard to fit him in, but I would like to have seen him off halfback.
What do you think of the whole height situation in this team? It feels, just looking at these general heights, there's not a lot of over 190s, and the few that are, they're fewer forwards. You've got Smiley, who's pretty big, but a lot of tall forwards. But defensively, they might struggle a little bit, this team.
let's go through the sort of key type position players or players who are over 190, say. So in the forward line, you've got Gabriel Stumpf, Tom Sims as your key forwards, and then you've also got Louis Emmett and Archie Ludowick, the only two bottom majors who have been selected. Bailey McKenzie will play a third key or third forward type of role, and Charlie Richardson can play a similar role as well. And then down back, you've got Adrian Cole, Harry O'Farrell, Lucas Tovey as your key position players, and Luke Traynor and Lennox Hoffman as well as your intercepting types, your third man coming across. So what do I think of it? I think that it's probably fair. It's probably balanced. Last year, there were 4 key defenders: Luke Traynor, Christian Mardini, Harry O'Farrell, and Ollie Murphy. This year, there's only 3, but the squad is smaller. That's from a key defensive point of view. The squad is 6 men smaller. Having said that, if there was one more key defender I would love to have seen given a go, it would be Liam Callaghan, and I probably would like to see one more in the squad, just given that there is lack of key position talent in this draft class. So I think you do gain quite a bit from seeing a few different players run through Vic Metro, see what they can do at national champs level, and really see the array of talent at the disposal of recruiters. Having said that, he might work his way into the squad for one of the later matches.
Yeah, certainly could. We saw that with Oscar Gorth for Vic Country last year with a run of good form. So
yeah, the couple of bottom majors that did. I think Cooper Hines did it last year.
Yeah, I mean, he was terrific one-on-one, just really held his ground well. Couldn't really fault the start to the season. Are
we talking Liam Callaghan?
Yeah, yep. Sorry. I mean, given Oakley's, they've had a pretty tough start. Given what he was having to deal with in that back line, he was holding himself pretty well back there. So, look, he's one that I still think will still play well, even without Metro. You couldn't. I know he probably was behind to start the season when you look. So, I still think there's a lot of time.
I guess the only thing I sort of concerned about is he's playing AGS footy now until the last month of the season, so that makes it a little bit tough for him. But he's one that I'll certainly keep a close eye on. But up forward, I guess I'm pretty happy with how balanced that is. There's no one in there there's no one that's not in there from a key forward point of view that I say, geez, he's unlucky not to make it. So, yeah, Tom Sims, really good match against Western and then performed on the weekend, 7 goals.
Yeah, big.
So, yeah, that really reinforced his spot in the squad. Gabriel Stumpf had a strong pre-season.
And good trials. That trials, I think, really cemented his spot in the end. Yeah, it was that.
And Tom Sims, same can be said. Yeah. And then the bottom majors, Archie Ludowick started the season like a house on fire for Sandy.
So good.
And I don't mind them including bottom majors for this. I like what they've done with bottom majors. I think that is something we should touch on because last year they were very heavy on bottom majors, particularly through the midfield, which caused some discussion. This year they've gone for a couple of bottom majors in a position that they're probably a little bit shallow in tall forwards. They haven't included Ollie Greaves in the squad, which I thought they would do, but I'm glad they haven't because he's obviously a midfielder forward and there's enough of them as top ages. Archie Ludowick and Louis Emmett, both capable. Louis Emmett, obviously a concussion, which punctuated his start to the season, but he did play the one game, played a trial as well, and hard to argue with his position given, there isn't a heap of height that they could have selected ahead of him.
I'll go through the fixture quickly for Vic Metro. Their first game is against Allies, which I'm not sure what we're going to get from Allies. I don't think we really ever do until they play their first game. That's at Icon Park. Then they're at Optus Stadium when they played WA. So, sorry, the first game's on the 9th of June. So it's actually pretty soon, only a month away now from the first Champs games. 2 weeks later, they're off to WA against WA at Optus, which is on the 23rd of June. 1 week later, they play SA in Adelaide. And then, obviously, the finale is the Metro Country, which can be a grand final sometimes, and hopefully both do get there, which would be good for our sake to have a good discussion about that, which is on the 14th of July. So 4 games for Metro.
Just having a quick think there. The starting Allies midfield is going to look okay. You're probably going to have Sammy Marshall in there, Lenny Douglas, and Nathaniel Salzberger. Pretty
tough, very contested midfield.
Yeah.
Which
Lenny Douglas probably balances that out with his explosiveness.
It'd be interesting against the Metro midfield that is just absolute speed. It's just win it and blast out of the corridor.
Forget one of those. Put Leo Lombard in there.
Yeah, but even he's got pace, but he's still a very tough character as well. So yeah, that'll be exciting. And even their forward line,
maybe
powerful.
Lenny Douglas starts forward. Yeah,
that'll be
Shanahan.
interesting. I think WA will be pretty weak again.
Yeah,
but SA should be pretty good. They've got a decent midfield SA, but
yeah,
and they've got tall forwards. SA that is where Metro will fall down if SA get on top inside 50. Is SA have ridiculously tall forwards. It's quite hilarious to watch sometimes in the sample. So that'll be interesting. Any other talking points? But generally, where do you think this team is going to finish?
I think they win it. I don't think they lose a game. And I'm happy to say that really confidently that Vic Metro will not lose a game. I guess, and it's worth touching on the ruck as well. He's probably the one player we haven't touched on. Ilaro Smith made the squad, probably the only ruck or the main ruck that's been in discussions in terms of draftability so far this season. So hard to really argue with his inclusion in the squad. And we'll be interested to see how he goes. He's starting to really build into some nice form and has shown some glimpses. Lucas Impey is also in the train-on squad for Vic Metro, so he might sneak a game if Ilaro Smith goes at the mid-season draft or they decide to bring someone else in. But I'll ask you, and I'll give my answer first. Any storylines that you're really happy to see who have made the Vic Metro squad? And I think from my point of view, the storyline that I look at is, I've given myself a question without notice. Bailey McKenzie, because coming into the Sandy Dragons program basically off the back of some really strong school footy, has an excellent preseason, shows that in a practice match against Oakley, and then strings together a month of really strong form where he's really strong overhead, nimble at ground level, more nimble than most would be at his size, plays that role of getting high up the ground pretty well, kicks a bag for Brighton, comes back to Sandy, kicks 7 goals. I think he's built really nicely into this season, and I would love to see him get a go at champs level. Maybe he's fighting for the same position that Charlie Richardson's fighting for, and they're in the same forward line at Brighton Grammar, so that'd be an interesting one. But I'm really happy to see Bailey McKenzie included.
Storyline wise is hard. I mean, I'm surprised. I assume Cody Anderson is in that, and he is, the way he's just started this season. Like you said, he had to be perfect, and he has so far. He's done terrific to get where he is. Pat Reshko is the other one I think you can't ignore in a storyline sense. I mean, motivation wise, he just absolutely came at it in 2024. Was obviously he wasn't selected in the initial Metro squad, and then just said to everyone,
"This is what I can
get stuffed," and he's made it, and he's arguably within this top 10 in this Vic Metro squad, the way he's just gone about it to start the year. But
just one more I want to touch on, probably a little bit unlucky, and it does go against what I said in terms of how many mids and forwards there are, because he is a mid forward. I do think he offers something a little bit different though, and it's Doug Kerr. Stands up in tackles, keeps his hands free, goes forward, would be a hard matchup because of that height and strength that he does have. So he's something that someone could have added something a little bit different with his height, because you did mention that there are a lot of sub 190s in this squad. But that probably rounds it out. Yeah, we could sit here and talk about it all night, but no, it's
I never say what I reckon they'll get to. I don't. It will be them or Allies again. I'm not sure if Country will have the depth to win. But it was funny last year. If Country had beaten Allies, I'm pretty sure they would have won it, given they beat Metro, which was just interesting because Country seemed to always be really 50-50, but they actually did a lot better than what it seemed. But I'll back the Metro boys to win it. But that wraps up the Metro talk. Now we're going to move to the Talent League. I want to start with the girls first, and then we'll end with the Talent League boys, and some mixed results across the weekend. And I guess we'll start with probably the weaker game, which was the Murray GWS game, which the Giants did comfortably win that one in the end, 74-15. Holly Egan was probably their shining star in the end, 25 touches and a goal to her name, 4 rebound 50s. So I can't complain with her performance. And still 2 Dodds in the Murray team, which is good to see. They got a big family, so good to see them playing together and playing some good footy together. So not an ideal day before Murray? Have you got anyone to add?
Just from a GWS perspective, I think it's important to highlight Majella Day, who's played some footy for the Murray Bushrangers, played against the Bushrangers on the day. And she's a 2008 born talent. She played some footy as a triple bottom major last year. Already played some footy, obviously, as a double bottom major this year. 5'2" from 8 touches. So 7 of her touches resulting in scores. Usually played down back. So good to see her play really well, and she'll be one to keep an eye on in the next couple of years. We move to Gippy versus Western. Gippy, a 4-goal last quarter, getting them over the line against Western, who challenged but ultimately weren't able to come up trumps. Good to see Ash Centra back towards her best after illness sort of grounded her a couple of weeks ago, and she was not quite there last week either. But 30 disposals and 4 goals speaks to a really well-rounded game what we're used to seeing from her.
Did you see the goal on Jordan Cannell's Twitter? If you haven't seen, it's a clip of one of her goals. She runs from the defensive 50 and ends up kicking the goal, and you can imagine how she does it. Handball just keeps running. Ash Centra nuts.
Yeah, certainly. And the other one worth touching on from a Gippy perspective, Abby Hobson is one who racked up 9 marks, so a really good aerial performance from her, and she's one who can take a grab overhead. They've been really enamoured by what she's been able to do. She's a bottom major. For the Western Jets, Sierra Greaves led from the front, as we've become accustomed to from her, and someone who is really well regarded as a bottom major. Alex McBride Lone performed well as well, so good to see.
Lily Hudson as well, 2 goals. She backs up a 3-goal performance, and good storyline there where she came in. She hasn't really spent a lot of time in the program, but she's 2 goals from 9 touches, so pretty productive day. Did a bit of pinch hitting in the ruck as well. So Gippy, pretty big win in terms of beating the Metro side. Like, that's actually we disregard. That's a pretty big statement for them. We'll move to Tassie and Sydney. And did you see the last 10 seconds? I was just going through the worm, and Sydney scored a point with 10 seconds to go, and it was eerily similar to the Eastern Brisbane boys game. It was a snap from 15 minutes out, get the ball, the siren goes. So it was Tassie won that 7-6 to 7-5, 1 point in the end. But I'll let you run through some of Tassie's best.
Mackenzie Williams, good to see her performing really well. She finished with 25 disposals. Bottom major, Priya Bowering was also really strong, as was Meg Harrison. So good to see them perform well. And Lucy Thompson as well applied really good pressure. So that's something we like to see. I was at the Dandenong Stingrays versus the Gold Coast Suns Academy game, and a really impressive performance from Dandenong, I thought, to keep Gold Coast within 22 points. Their defence held up really well in the second half. It felt like Gold Coast could have really got away from them, but 1 goal apiece last quarter was really impressive. I thought after Dandenong did jump them early, ultimately Gold Coast just had too much class. Dakota Barron up forward.
She's nuts.
5 goals, and just seemed to take any mark when the kick was targeted towards her inside 50. But from a Dandenong Stingrays perspective, I thought the main one that really jumped out at me was Alice Cunnington, a debutante. They played 6 debutantes on the weekend, the Stingrays girls, and her ability in close, her poise for someone on debut was really impressive. And she took back-to-back contested marks in the third quarter, 2 in about 90 seconds. And that showed her aerial ability as well. Certainly that's a trait of hers that was really clear if you saw the way those marks were taken. Kate Terry continues on her really good form. She was really good in tight. Nalu Brothwell took some really nice marks as well. And Gemma Reynolds was as classy as we've become accustomed to as well. Geelong versus Calder, a really enticing ruck battle here between Hayley Peck and Ali Spegan. And it was sort of shared the chocolates, I suppose you'd say, but good to see Hayley Peck getting a couple of challenges. She had the challenge against Talia Black and Zoe Basenko a couple of weeks ago. And she's one that I think the Falcons think deserves a bit more attention with the way she's performing. Obviously really athletic, and her ruck craft is really good. Her hit-outs to advantage numbers are really strong. Rebecca Cloddy, really good as well, 16 disposals and 10 tackles. When I turned that
game on, she's very physically demanding, Cloddy. Like, you feel her presence, and she's flies the flag for her team, especially like one of those players you want there to fight for you. And she was good, especially inside forward 50 from what I saw bits and pieces of that game.
Lucy Marishuk, another one whose speed has probably is really impressive, but she's flown under the radar and played another strong game as well. Nathan, GWV versus Bendigo. GWV getting the job done 7-7-49 for their first victory of the season and consigning Bendigo 6 straight 36 to their first loss of the season. You caught some of this game.
Yeah, I watched the last quarter of this game, and it was 6 straight Bendigo. So it was they were in it with their straight kicking. But the last quarter was pretty scrappy from what I watched. But I mean, Claire Marnie kicked her 4 goals earlier in the game, and she always just had that presence whenever the Rebels went inside 50 late in the game, but just wasn't able to really get her hands on it. Lexi Gregor kicked 2 goals for the game, but she did go and play a role down back in that last quarter to help stop and pretty much stop the Rebels from scoring anymore, which did pretty well in the end. And she's extremely tough. You notice how big she is compared to the rest of the girls.
Yep.
Lexi, Millie Lane, 29 touches and pretty complete for her. 5 rebound 50s and 3 inside 50s. Probably had some less desirable moments from what I watched, but I'm not going to assume that's how she played for the entire game. But still knows how to rack up a lot of it. Isabel Davies, again, 23 touches. Just really productive. And Elise Cook, 19 and a goal. So, yeah, I'm glad Rebels got that's their first win for the program for the year. So that's quite big. Sure. And Bendigo get their first loss of the season and the final game of the round.
Yeah, Eastern going down 4-2-26 to Brisbane 5-12-42. You watched some of this game as well. Taylor McMillan continuing her fine form to start the season. So her speed and acceleration has gone to another level this season, is the reports out of the Eastern Rangers program. So, yeah, really good in the midfield. Georgia Knight kicked 3 goals, but I know you were really high on the games of Grace Ballany through the middle and Geordie Allen, who backed up a strong fortnight of form, I suppose. What did they do that impressed you?
Yeah, well, Geordie Allen, you talk about defensive reliability. She's that, just always cool, calm, composed, knows where to move it, doesn't rush her kicks out of D50. That was similar to McMillan as well. Whilst she's got that pace, and it was actually just her general football smarts, I thought, around the ground. And the score was pretty reflective of that game. Like, Brisbane were quite dominant and just had that upper class, and they've got some real nifty small forwards there that just love to cause a bit of chaos inside forward 50, and that's probably what was the difference in the end. Eastern just couldn't really find their rhythm moving forward, and Grace Ballany played in the midfield from what I saw at the very least, and it was just good to see her getting involved. She was keeping up. Her work rate was really strong, just presenting around the ground to offer some offensive presence, and then also pushing back into D50 and helping in transition, which nice. I thought was really good. So just that general work rate from both of them was terrific.
Murray, we're moving on to the boys now. Murray getting the job done over the GWS Academy 18-11-119 to GWS 7-7-49. The big storyline to come out of this game is Cohen Paul getting 27 touches, a goal and 6 tackles. He was moved into the midfield for the first time this season. And he's one that we should talk about. And I have talked about a lot throughout the last 6 to 8 months. And it's good to see him finally produce with his power that he has got and his size. He's 193 centimetres and he's a big body, strong and powerful. Just hasn't quite been in that midfield mix. He's been played on the wing. But it's good to see him go inside because I think that's a position that he can really excel in. And he certainly capitalised on his opportunity. Matt Whitlock swung forward, kicked 5 goals, and that's really good to see because he obviously had that nice game for the AFL Academy without absolutely blowing the lights out. And Joe Berry continues on his goal-kicking form. His smarts inside 50 is absolutely unbelievable. And his ability overhead as well probably goes underrated. His pressure underlined by 6 tackles as well.
Well, can I just add one more as well to that list is Alex Swinnerton, who
18 disposals and a few tackles.
Yeah, so, I mean 8 tackles. He was their leading tackler in the end, and it shows that small forward role he does it really well. It just does the little things well, and probably didn't have as much impact as he would have liked in those first 2 rounds. It showed actually quite a bit against Bendigo. He just provides that pressure and consistent impact with his just is able to be there where the ball drops and give himself an opportunity to at least impact a play. And glad that was showing on the stats sheet for Alex. Yep. Next one, Gippy.
Gippy win 10-17, 77 to the Western Jets 8-6, 54. They were able to pull away in the third quarter with the power. Xavier Lindsay again, best on ground, and just continued on doing what he does so well. Jesse Craven also really good with his pressure and overager for the Gippsland power. And from a Western Jets perspective, Luca Grego was quite strong. Lockie MacArthur had a good game down back, which was really good to see. It was a real aerial presence back there, I'm told. And Xavier Carducci, really good in the midfield after missing Metro, probably because he hasn't shown that flexibility. But racking it up in the midfield and using it really well as well. I'm told he was quite clean. So good to see that. The Tassie Devils against the Sydney Swans Academy. I watched a little bit of this game. I watched quite a lot of this game, actually. And it was quite a scrappy one. And some players were probably below their best skill-wise. But I tell you, one player who wasn't below his best skill-wise, Jarvis Breen. Wow, he made a real impression as a bottom major on the wing, really connected the back line with the forward line. His running patterns were elite, and every time he got the ball in hand, he had an air of composure that none of his teammates nor opponents had. I thought it was an outstanding performance for someone so young and early on in his talent league career, and I'm really keen to keep an eye on him going forward.
They could make the Allies squad. We absolutely have no idea.
No, not sure about that. So, I'm not sure, but certainly that game showed that he has got something about him. Lenny Douglas played more up forward than probably what I'm accustomed to seeing. He obviously can run through the midfield as well. His pressure was really good, obviously kicked some goals as well. Connor Ling was really, really good in tight and was able to release some teammates into space, which was good. Harry Brereton was a really important figure down back. And then in the ruck, Ollie Dean and Jasper Hay shared the duties. Jasper Hay showed some really nice moments. Wasn't his best game, and he'll get better and better and better, and we'll continue to talk about the bottom-aged key position prospect. Obviously, he'll continue to slowly develop, but you can see why there are some people that really like him. And Ollie Dean, I thought, had some really nice moments aerially and was quite competitive in the ruck, which is good to see. So, good win, that one from Tassie, and a necessary one to start to string some momentum together, hopefully, for the program.
Northern Oakley.
So Northern, obviously, the storyline out of this one is that Tom Sims kicked 7 goals, 4, and had 11 shots on goal, 10 marks. A really good day to be a forward if you're a Northern Knight, winning by 98 points.
Look, I watched... This was going to be my game of choice, and I watched the second quarter of this, and Oakley were competing. 98 points probably reflects what it did turn into, but Oakley were really competing. They were just super inefficient, and they actually got a lot of the ball moving forward. Jagger was just so classy, a level above. You notice him just like that, which we already knew.
Yep.
And I liked what Kobe Askew did at half forward as well. Just gets himself into space. He gets off his opponent so easily, and really hard to match. I wonder if he can take it to that next level and really be that dominant kind of small forward that can roll up. But I thought he was pretty effective and had some really good vision inside 50. So I just want to mention those Oakley players. But it was after that point it got really just kind of all over the place for Oakley. Yeah,
Zach Johnson, a ball magnet, as we have become accustomed to. So, love to see him continue to produce in the midfield and put his case forward. You talked about whether he gets to run through the Vic Metro midfield before. One player who I was really glad to see play quite well was Liam Farah. Heard some good things about him in pre-season, and his marking was really effective from what I'm told. Really good one-on-one, and obviously took the 11 marks, so that speaks to that. But some of those marks were really, really good. Obviously got some good service from the midfield as well. One of those midfielders was Ty Kitchell, who played the game of his season, and Seb Murphy, a bottom major, was really big in the second half as well. So good to see the Knights have a big win, but Oakley, it's a little bit difficult for them with the lack of continuity with schoolboy footy. Eastern versus Brisbane, you watched a lot of this game. Eastern getting the job done 12-7, 79 to 11-9, 75. Cody Anderson, some really good moments late, some important moments late, an intercept mark, and a big tackle. A good first quarter. Josh Smiley stuffed the stats sheet.
Yeah, Smiley was just ridiculous. That physical presence is so hard to take down, and I don't want to go on because we know what he can do, but 34 and 3 to end the day. It was just exactly what you'd expect out of him.
Yep.
Yeah, like you said with Cody, had some really good moments at the end, and he was terrific to start the game. Missed the second quarter, but came back. Didn't have a lot of it in the third. I thought there were a few moments of just kind of missed decision later in the game. But like generally, it was still a really productive game from Cody, and it just continues on his good form. Liked what Jack Ryan did, and you could tell there was a little bit of frustration in his game, just obviously missing out on Metro. You could see it, which is a good thing because he's got motivation. He's got that extra kick in his game, and kicked a really nice goal from 40 metres out in the first half, which just kind of set the tone for his day. When he was pushing up the ground, lowered his eyes, just kind of classy ball movement, moving further down the ground, which really liked. And I wrote here that he's just really good at creating perceived pressure. And whilst he might not get there, he does a really good job at making himself look big and really
corralling and that sort of thing.
Which I thought was really good for him, and it was just a neat performance from him.
Yeah, no, very nice. We move on to the Dandenong Stingrays versus the Gold Coast Suns Academy, 15-8-98 to 10-9-69. The Stingrays getting up after getting jumped early, Gold Coast kicking 5 of the 6 goals in the first quarter. The big storyline out of this game for me was Harry Doughton. You talked about Jack Ryan playing with a bit of spring in his step after missing the Metro squad. Harry Doughton didn't get the country trial and certainly bounced back towards his best. The first play of the game really summed up what was going to come from him. 18 disposals and 5 tackles doesn't do justice to how good a game it was and how complete a midfield performance I thought it was from Harry Doughton. He won a centre clearance in the first centre clearance of the game because of a holding the ball free kick. So a massive tackle, holding the ball free kick, then kicks it perfectly inside 50, puts it on a platter for a leading Jacob Grant. So that sort of kicking efficiency going forward and pressure was evident throughout the day for him, and won a few free kicks for it as a result. And then there were some others that were really good. I could go through sort of 8 or 9 Dandenong Stingrays. Cooper Hines was probably the standout alongside him. 5 goals, 1 and 23 disposals. The behind was one where he actually ran into an open, well, not a goal square, a behind square. He kicked it between the wrong posts, so he could quite easily have had 22, 23 and 6, but a really strong day from him. Hard to match up one-on-one. Forward on Cooper Hines. Sam Lewis won lots of clearances as a bottom major. He was really good when he went through the midfield. Toby Cinema got some midfield minutes and looked good. Max Lee provided a lot of spark on the wing. Tyson Arnich kicked a really nice goal from 50. Harvey Langford was really good in the midfield and forward line. 28 disposals and 3 goals underlines that. Paddy Bloink connected really well with his teammates. His synergy is really good, or it looks like he's someone who spends a lot of time and really understands that role. His efficiency, excellent. Kane Hurst, really tough down back, and he's one to keep a close eye on because he's strung a really good month of form together, and Rayak Andrew was quite reliable as well. Quinn Harvey on debut did some nice things. So yeah, quite a few to run through there from the Stingrays.
Expansive.
But a good day. It was a good day for their program, so I think it was worth doing it. Calder, a 19-point win over Geelong.
Take a breath. You've just given a full account there. I'll go through the Geelong Calder game whilst you take your breath there. Yeah, Will McLaughlin kicked 5 goals again. Yeah, go figure. Honestly, he's just. I don't know how he does it. I caught one of the goals, actually, where he ran into an open goal, but he's nuts. Isaac Kako, 3 goals, 19 touches, and 10 marks. Pretty good performance from him. And yeah, probably is been really close to having that real strong performance, and I think that really caps off how well he has been playing. Nash Kin, probably his really first strong outing since he came back. He came back in round 3, so he hasn't played a lot of football since then, but 25 and a goal. Really good from him. And when I turned it on, and I obviously love Jaden Ewan, but he was tough. Every time I just kind of turned that game on, he was always in the moment and providing some physicality and pressure. Should add, Calder were up by, looking at the worm, it was 37 was the biggest lead. Geelong actually got it back to 3 points in the third quarter, so it did actually a pretty fair job to get it back, but obviously fatigue set in and Calder got up in that. Yeah,
Lockie Jakes is one that went really well as well, and I'm told Noah Scott played a really strong game, probably his best performance of the year, so that's really good to see. Obviously, Noah in pre-season, he was one that you really liked, particularly what he was able to produce last season. Damon Hollow, 19 touches and 2 goals, so a good balanced performance from him. And then the last match of the round, I watched this one. I think I sort of touched on it before. Bendigo winning it on the siren, Ollie Poole running into an open goal and kicking her behind. So, yeah, amazing scenes there. And Bendigo continue their unbeaten run in the boys. And, yeah, there were a fair few that stood out, probably headed by Job Shanahan. Hard to go past him. 21 disposals and a goal. It's not often a key forward kicks only one goal and you think they're clearly the best on ground, but he was very good, 9 marks. And yeah, he was probably at his best, or certainly as good as I've seen him this season. So really good to see. I know he's had a 4-goal performance, but overall I thought he showed all parts of his game, his athleticism, his ground level work as well in amongst all of that. Archer Day Wicks, another one who played the best game of his season, 21 disposals and a goal. He hit up Job Shanahan a fair few times actually and was really, really tough, really went at the ball really hard. I was really impressed with him. I reckon of those 21, 14 of them would have been contested possessions. He ran through the midfield, spent some time on Ollie Hannaford, won the Hannaford battle, no doubt about it. And yeah, I thought, when he went into the midfield, he was able to impact. Lockie Hogan, 20 disposals and 2 goals. Would have been kicking himself with a late kick inside 50 that missed a target, because I reckon that's the first target he's missed all season, and that was when the scores were still level. But all's well that ends well, and yeah, his kicking efficiency was as good as it always is. Toby Travalia, some really inspiring efforts late. James Barrett, 8 shots on goal, which really underlined how good he was up forward. And Taj Bond, I thought, had an excellent game, particularly in the second half. The third quarter of his, I thought, was really strong and took some really good marks. Hunter Wright, as a bottom major, really impressive, the best I've seen him play. And Angus Goble down back was also quite strong.
All right, let's wrap it up with our tips. We're going to just keep on track with the boys, and it starts on only the single game on Saturday, Tassie and Dandy, which is a double header, but one game is 6 hours later. So go make sense of that. Who have you got in that?
Are we saying boys or girls?
Boys.
Yeah, I've got the Dandenong Stingrays winning that one.
I think Tassie in Tassie. They haven't.
Okay.
Is this their first game in Tasmania all year?
No.
No.
They played Oakley in Tassie.
No, that was in.
That was at Craigieburn.
That was the girls that played. Yeah, could be. I'll have to double check that, but I'll say Tassie on that. Calder get the trip to Queensland. They play Brisbane, who Brisbane's boys academy have lost by 3 points and now 4 points. So I'm going to say Calder win by 5 points.
I'll give it to Brizzy.
Western and Eastern at Avalon. I'll say Eastern.
As will I.
GWV and Gippy at Latrobe in. Is it Bundoora?
Bundoora,
yeah. I really want Rebels to win, but I think Gippy will win.
So do I.
Murray and Oakley. Yeah, Murray.
Yeah, I'd have Murray winning this one comfortably.
They're so down players, Oakley. Like, it's ridiculous. Gold Coast and Geelong.
I've got the Falcons winning this one.
Yep, so do I. Bendigo and Northern to finish the round.
Yeah, this is a really good test for Bendigo.
Good
probably the biggest test they've faced so far this season. Off the top of my head, I would have thought.
Yeah, well, this was the Nate Caddy game if you go back to last year where he kicked 6.
Yeah, and I've got a really tough choice on my hands.
I'll go whoever you don't.
Yeah, I'm gonna back the Pios.
Okay, Northern for me. Over to the girls, Tassie and Dandenong, which is at 4:30 when the boys are at 9:30. Don't know why that's happened. Who have you got there?
Tasmania.
Tassie as well. Gold Coast and Geelong.
Gold Coast.
Gold Coast. Bendigo and Northern.
Northern.
Brighton Homes Arena. Brisbane and Calder.
Brisbane.
GWV and Gippy. Rebels. Murray and Oakley. Oakley and Western and Sandy. Well, that wraps it up. Next week, be back reviewing as normal. Vic Country squad, probably didn't know before. Vic Country will come out later.
We're still about 3 weeks away from that.
They always start really late. So, of course, we'll go through that when that happens. But thank you all for watching. Make sure to tune into all our socials for a lot more. And, we will see you in the next episode.